Hello, welcome to this week's paint along. We are moving on along with the leather this week, so we'll finish that up. We've got the belt and these pouches here, as well as I am doing the kind of the main handle part right here as leather as well. And I think that is it. I'll do this in kind of a lighter, more typical rope coat. Actually, I'll also do, I'm also going to do it where this, if you can see the horn, that as leather as well. That's something that sometimes is done on drinking horns, so that is what I'm going to have it be on this one. My base coat slash darkest shadow here is a mostly brown liner. I think it's about 3 or 4 drops of brown liner and then 2 drops of Auburn shadow. So if it looks a little bit warmer than what you're used to for brown liner, that is why. Because the Auburn shadow is going to warm it up quite a bit. And since we're doing the leather here, I'm also going to tweak the highlights on the leather that we've already done. Because I feel like now that we've gotten more things painted, it is looking like it needs a bit more highlights. Trying to be careful around things we've already painted, like the little buttons on these pouches here. So this right here, we got is part of the horn. You could totally do this part, like do the accent all metal. That's totally, I think the sculpt gives some leeway there. But we got a lot of white from the fur and the silver already from the axe and chains. I think it helps kind of break it up a little bit. Oh, sorry. Can't get that focus fixed. I know why it's not focusing very well. Let me switch. A little bit better there. Great. Now we're gonna move up to where it's kind of almost 50-50 of Auburn shadow and the brown liner. I'm gonna stick to more of the outsides because that's where it's gonna get worn and lighter in color. Especially if you got what looks like, you can tell there, but it looks like there is a lip. You definitely want to keep like the shadow color really dark right under there. There would be a natural shadow there. I missed some of the tops of these. And don't worry if like you end up at, like if you aren't able to have a brush that keeps a good tip on it like this, and you end up completely getting where this darker shadow needs to be, you can always come back. It's going to be easier to just probably come in later and just fix it with like the thin down, more thin down version of that shadow color. is just Auburn shadow. This is probably not thin down quite enough, but that's okay. Just means that we can get started doing kind of more of that worn leather texture that you usually get. And also tells you that, like, you don't need to put quite as much pressure putting when you paint. So you just want to be a little gentler. This is going to be kind of where I start doing some, as you can see, tweaking of what I've already done. Also fixing some areas where I got some of that white paint, or glaze rather. Doesn't really matter like what specific things you pull out. It's all embossed, so you can kind of just pick and choose enough so that it really kind of highlights some of the design and just here and there. Also keeping some of the shadows. So you have to kind of pick and choose. about the handle. I'm not going to worry too much about this pattern that's on there. I'm going to focus more on just getting where the highlights should be. This is a mixture, so there's about 1 drop of Auburn shadow, 1 drop of pure white, and a few drops of polished leather. Another way of doing it is kind of a pseudo dry brush. So I've got the brush, let's see, kind of flattened out. Just taking the kind of, it's basically also called the edge highlighting. I've wiped off quite a bit of the paint though. Gonna reinforce the shadow. So there you go, really taking up the highlights a bit lighter and then reinforcing the shadow. You can see how much that really helps things. And I'm just going to give a glaze of those two middle colors. Really light glaze though. So it's these two colors around here, just one brush full of each. Add even more water. So that, so that we really do get a light glaze. So you can see how it's just barely tinting now. There we go. So that is probably as light of a glaze that we're going to get with before we just completely break paint. And then wipe most of it off of your brush. I use my palette, so it's just a very small amount. There you go. And you can see how kind of like we've gotten now a little bit more of a smoother blend from that dark to light. Now if we got, it is always possible when doing glazing that your highlight gets lost a little bit. So you can just come back with that with little touches. Keep forgetting the handle. I need to glaze that. So that especially needed some help. I also don't think I did these inner wraps. Alright, there we go. Thanks. Looks pretty good. Looks like, for the most part, pretty much the same colors. Got a little bit more shadows and highlights in there. So yeah, that's looking good. So that's the leather now done. Look at that a little bit. So yeah, now we're starting to get down to some of the really small things. Like we got the rope here, obviously. And then we still have the claws that we need to do. And the base. So yeah. Stay tuned and come back next week. Hope you have a good week ahead of you. And I'll see you then. Bye.